Hi, and welcome back to Advanced Photoshop. This is Mike McCreesh, your instructor, and today we're going to take a look at a seldom used yet very powerful tool, and that is the Puppet Warp feature. And the Puppet Warp allows you to actually change the pose in a still image. It's really quite amazing. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's open up the file that we downloaded from Blackboard called Mannequin. This is just a little artist mannequin that I've downloaded from the internet, and we're going to animate this little guy. But first we need to extract it from the background. So let's go to the quick selection tool. I'll just press W on the keyboard, and let's zoom in here a little bit. And before I actually make my selection, I'm going to turn on this auto enhance feature here at the top. That's going to do a more accurate selection. And I'm going to drop my brush size down because I need to get into some rather small places here, and we're just going to click and drag over the mannequin's body, and we'll go ahead and get out here and get the arms and the hands, drop my brush size down a little bit and get to these smaller areas. And we'll move on down, get the legs. Now you notice that we've picked up some of that negative space in between the legs, so we're going to have to drop that out here in just a little bit. Okay, so to remove the unwanted selections, we're going to hold down the alternate or option key, and let's click in there to remove them from our selection. Let's get this little shadow area over here by the foot and move up, and again get the negative space in between the legs. Use a small brush and holding down the option key to subtract it from the selection. Okay, so we've got our little mannequin selected. Let's click on the Refine Edge button, and in the panel that opens up for the view mode, let's choose black and white, and I'll press enter or return to accept that. And I want to smooth out the selection. You can see that it's just not real clean. So I'm going to take this smooth slider here and drag that off to the right a little bit until it smooths out. And then I think I will probably shift the edge a little bit inward just to make certain we got rid of all that background space. Now I can come over here if I want to check that, change my view mode to on white. And it looks pretty good. So, down at the bottom we're going to choose Output To, and I'm going to choose New Layer, and click OK. And in my Layers panel you see that my original layer has been hidden and our new extraction is placed on a new layer. Now just to make this look a little bit sharper and to make it a little less distracting, let's create a new layer beneath this one and fill it with white paint. I'll hold down the Control key and click on the New Layer button. Holding down the Control key places that layer beneath the previously active layer, and I'll just fill that with white. Then let's go back to our background copy layer to make it active. Now let's go to our Edit menu and let's choose Puppet Warp. And when we do that, you see that a little grid appears over the figure, and it's broken up into planes that are tripled. Everything is a triangle. I really don't know why they have that displayed there, because it's nothing that we really need to worry about. So I'm going to come up here to the options bar, and I'm going to turn off the show mesh. Okay, and with our Puppet Warp feature active, you'll see that your cursor turns into a little map pin with a plus sign next to it. So what we do with the Puppet Warp tool is we take the cursor and we add pins at different points, and that allows us to move parts of the image around. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's put a pin right in the center of our mannequin there. And when you see that it has a black circle, that means it's currently selected. Now I'm going to add another point right here in the center of the head. And let's go ahead and put one at all the major joints. Let's put one here at the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. And I'll put one in the same locations on the other arm. I'll put one at the waist, at the hips, knees, and feet. Now, I'm going to come up here to the pin that I put on the head and hover over it and click on it, make it active. You see the little circle with a white dot in it, means it's active. And then I'm going to click and drag on that, and you see how you can move that figure around. Now what's happening here is the other pinpoints have pinned it down so that they don't move. The more pins you have, the less movement that's going to take place. I can take this hand over here, let's click on this wrist, make it active, and I can pull it down. You see how it's starting to distort parts of the other arm, or other parts of the arm, and to keep that from happening, I'd have to put down a series of other points. In this case here, I don't think I really need to do that. Now, something else I can do, let me just press Control or Command Z to undo that. I can shift click on another point to select both of them, and then I can click and drag on one of them, and they both move. So you can do all kinds of interesting things with your Puppet Warp. Now you may notice, like when I click on this wrist pin right here, and I move it around, you see how it distorts the upper arm quite a bit. I can do this. I'm going to select this pin that's at the elbow. Just click on it, and again, I know it's selected because it has a white dot in it at this point. And I'll come up over here in the rotate option, and I'm going to set that to fixed. And now with that point fixed, when I click on the wrist pin and move it around, you see that that upper arm moves a lot less because we've kind of restricted the movement of it. So we have a little more control that way. Okay, so now here's another way we can do our animation for our figure. I'm going to hold down the alternate or the option key, and I'm going to hover over the anchor point on that arm. I'll zoom in so you can see a little bit better here. I'll hold down the alternate key, and I'm going to hover over that pinpoint, and then a little scissors icon appears. I'm going to click on that, and that removes that pinpoint. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one at his elbow, so that we only have one. And now I'm going to select this pinpoint right at his shoulder just by clicking on it. And then I'll go back to holding down the alternate or option key. So once again, I've selected it, and then I held down the option key, and you see this little circle that appears around it with these handles, and I can click and drag on those handles, and I can rotate it this way. So that's another way that you can change the pose of your puppet. Next, I want to show you something that's really quite amazing. Let's go ahead and put these pivot points. I'm going to put a pivot point right back on his wrist over here. I'll leave the one on the elbow missing. Just not replace it. And I'm also going to zoom out just a little bit here. And with this pinpoint at his wrist active, I'm going to click that and I'm going to drag that over like this. Notice that when I moved his arm over here, that it's in front of his body. Let's do this. Let's come up to our options panel at the top where it says pin depth. And there's a little option here where I can move it forward or where I can move it backward. I'm going to click the backward button. I may have to do it a time or two. There we go. Just did it one time. And look at that. It moves the arm behind the torso. So now I'll come over here and I'm going to remove this point at the elbow. Again, I'm going to hold down the alternate key. I get my little scissors symbol. I click on that to remove it. And then I will just click over here on the hand or the wrist and to add a point and make it active. And I'm going to click this one and drag it up like this. So now the arm is in the front, one is in the back. And if I want to, whichever one is active, I can change the pin depth. So now they're both in the back. I can bring it to the front. I can select the other arm, the first one we put back there, and bring that to the front if I want to. Or put them both behind the back. Just by clicking on the pin depth options. So just to finish this off, I think I'll just go ahead and select some of these other points and just add a little more interest to them. Clicking them, moving them around a little bit. Just to make my figure look a little more natural. And then once you're finished with it, you can click the commit button that you'll find in the upper right hand corner of your options bar to commit to those changes. And there is your finished puppet figure. And you can press Ctrl Z repeatedly and kind of see how your little figure can move around and dance there. So let's save and close this one. I'm going to save it and we're going to close it. And I'm going to open up another file called Businessman. And in a similar fashion, I'm going to extract him from the background. Let's go to our quick selection tool just by pressing W on the keyboard. Adjust your brush size. And let's just draw a selection over the figure. Let's get the book, the wrist, make certain that we get all the figure. Don't forget this wrist over here because it will probably be dropped out of the selection. And the boots. We're going to click on the Refine Edge button. Change the view mode to black and white. And with my Refine Radius tool, I'm going to paint over his hair to make certain that we get all of that in there. Then at the bottom where it says Output 2, I'm going to choose New Layer, just like we did before. And click OK. And now my figure is on a separate layer. Our original layer is preserved, so if we mess things up, we've always got that one to fall back on. Now, when we worked with the little artist mannequin, once we committed to that, we were locked in on it. In other words, I couldn't go back and change it once I pressed that commit button. Here, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to take my background copy, and I'm going to right-click on that, and I'm going to convert that to a smart object. Now that it's a smart object, I will be able to turn on or off, toggle on or off, what I do with the Puppet Warp. So let's go to Edit and choose Puppet Warp. We're going to add a pin up here at his head and a few pins around here. Now again, the pins actually not only do they allow you to move the figure, but the ones that are not selected will hold that part of the figure in place. So we're going to pin down the parts that we don't want to move. And the more of these pins I add, the more complex it becomes, but the more control I've got. So I'm going to go over here to the pin that I've placed on his head. I'm going to click and drag, and you see you can move his head. So this is kind of a more realistic application of this. I can take his book, and I can move his book around, reposition the hand, and actually change his pose. Now here's where we can have some real fun. So what I'm going to do is, up here in my modes, you see it's set to normal. I'm going to click on that, and you see that we can have an option for rigid, normal, or distort. These just determine the flexibility of the Puppet Warp feature. I'm going to change that to distort. And let's say that you are maybe working on a greeting card, and you want to do something kind of unusual with this greeting card. So with the mode set for distort, I'll come over here to the pin on the head. I'm going to click and drag, and look what we can do with that. Okay, now it's kind of going behind his book. If I wanted to, I could take this pin on the book and put that behind the head. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and have a little bit of fun. So you can create a rather whimsical illustration very quickly and easily with this. And then once I click on the commit button, or if I just press return or enter, it'll do the same thing. If I take a look at my layers panel, you'll see that because we changed that to a smart object, we now have the smart filters option where our Puppet Warp feature has been added, and I can toggle that on or off. So it's not permanent when you convert it to a smart object. Let's go ahead and put a white background behind this too. So I'll hold down the control key and click on my new layer button and fill that with white. Shift backspace and white. And so there's our finished Puppet Warp feature. Again, this is something that's not used that often in Photoshop, but I think it has a lot of potential for someone with a very creative mind. So send me both of these files and we'll move on to more topics in Advanced Photoshop.